Hello, and welcome back to the latest edition of the Crux Spotlight podcast. Crux Product Design is a leading design agency that works with a range of major organisations. I'm Dominic Walters, and today I'm continuing my investigation into what makes great product design, and in particular, what makes Crux so good at it. Today, we're going to go back to talk about applied sciences, but in particular about innovation, because Crux has recently won the very prestigious PDA Innovation Award. And to do that, I'm talking to Crux's chief scientist, Joel Gresham. Hi, Joel.
Hi, Dom.
First of all, the title, chief scientist, that sounds incredibly important. What's it about and what do you do?
So I'm responsible for the scientific side of our consulting business, and that means running a lot of cross-disciplinary scientific projects for our pharmaceutical and medical device clients. When I say cross-disciplinary, that can be the engineering sciences, biological and medical sciences, but there's also work in things like human factors, which we can put a very scientific touch on.
Wow. So you have to be aware of all scientific development in every different aspect of the work that Crux does.
Yeah, I suppose so. And you might think, well, that's a lot of disparate areas. How can you maintain expertise across a lot of areas? But I don't think that's the lens through which I see it. It's more about making the right connections between disciplines and applying scientific principles to sometimes disciplines I'm very familiar with and sometimes relatively new ones.
Okay. Well, we'll talk more about that in a moment. But I guess part of the fruit of this scientific knowledge has been the Innovation Award, the PDA Award, that Crux has recently won. Congratulations about that.
Yeah.
Tell us more about what that award is for and why it's so important and what it means for Crux, please.
Well, in a sense, so the award's here, and the award means we took the right risks. We did some difficult work with Pfizer last year, difficult and novel work, and the industry leaders, they recognised us for that. Mm-hmm. So when I say industry leaders specifically, this PDA UPS conference is really the most important conference in our industry of pharmaceutical drug delivery and injectables. So at a conference with 1,000+ delegates, 150 submissions for presentations, our work with Pfizer was selected as the overall winner of the Innovation Awards, so the most innovative project that those industry experts saw that year.
Wow. Okay. So out of interest, what is, do you think, what's the essence of good innovation, and what makes Crux so evidently good at that?
So there's a novelty aspect, certainly. Being the first, and being the first to do something that's important to a lot of people. Mm. So in our world of drug delivery, there's common challenges faced. I don't think it's a stretch to say by every single pharmaceutical company that is developing injectable formulations, and that's all of the big ones. And I think back 5-6 years ago when I first attended a PDA conference, the topics they were talking about were very similar to the ones they were talking about this last year. So, in other words, the industry's been hung up on some very similar challenges for a very long time, waiting for someone to provide a solution, and our work at Crux with Pfizer comes in there and says, here's some solutions to those problems.
And obviously the approach you took must have been different from the approach that other people were taking, otherwise it wouldn't have been successful. So what is different, do you think, about the approach that you take at Crux to innovation?
Yeah, that is the nice thing. We go to these conferences and there's no one besides us, really. We don't see anything like this from our competition. I think that's the way we grow our talent and allow them to work on things that I suppose team members at Crux will develop expertise, and we'll trust them with that expertise and allow them to pursue that, allow them to work on what the best solutions are with quite a high level of trust and autonomy, but also a high level of collaboration with our clients.
Right, I see. So people are allowed to have free rein to try new things within a framework, I guess, of what you know works, but also working alongside their clients as well.
Yeah, I think so.
And what benefits does that bring to a client, that way of working, do you think?
Well, working with Crux, you get immediate access to all of our collective knowledge across all the disciplines we work in. We have up to the minute latest knowledge of what's happening in the industry, where technologies are going, where drug delivery strategies are going as well. So you tap into the leading knowledge straight away, and you get expertise of 100 plus people to solve your difficult problem and do it pretty quickly as well. So we're doing innovation, we're working on hard, novel things, and we're also working pretty fast. So projects can be anything from a few weeks to the biggest ones, maybe a few years. But time and time again, clients are telling me on projects I'm working on with them, wow, that was fast. You guys are really fast. And with the kind of scientific work we're doing, it can be reminiscent of what you might find in a university department. Right. But if you want a university project for you, it's usually going to take 3 or 4 years in many cases. We'll be doing that in 3 or 4 months, to the level of quality and rigor that the pharmaceutical industry
quality,
needs.
rigor and pace, by the sound of it. Yeah. Now, what underpins all this, you were going back to what you were saying earlier about your role as chief scientist, is keeping abreast and ahead of all the latest thinking in science. Now, for me, that seems a bewildering task, because there's always new stuff. So how do you and your colleagues keep abreast of what's going on, keep ahead of it, and then apply new scientific thinking to innovation?
It is a challenge. Reading a lot of scientific literature is still a very fundamental part of maintaining knowledge, but with, I think it's about 10,000 new scientific publications are released every day in the world. There's no way that any team of people can keep up. So you have to know what to focus on. You do get very good at reading quickly, but no one can be quick enough to read that much science. The way we keep it relevant and we maintain knowledge about the most important scientific advancements is actually by listening. So part of the privilege of the work we do at Crux and a role like mine is on a weekly basis I'm talking to senior directors and vice presidents at large pharmaceutical companies. When you're doing that, you've got to be in listening mode and understand, what are they saying, what are they asking for? Do they know what they want, or do I need to help them work out what they want? And then I can match that up to what's happening in the world of science and research, and I can propose something to them that's a feasible solution to their problems. So it starts with listening.
That's an interesting take on it, because I guess it's not just about knowing stuff, that's important, but it's also about knowing the questions to ask. And how do you know the questions to ask? How do you develop those?
I think you just need to be careful in asking open questions. Don't come with too many preconceived notions about what they want. Questions like, where are you hoping to take this in the next year, or what's the real commercial driver for this project? So it's one of the funny things about the more scientific roles in industry is actually they're also very much about relationships and people and understanding what their needs are.
So it sounds like in your role, knowing the science is important, but it's by no means the only part. There's also the importance of understanding the commercial needs and applications and being able to talk about the commercial aspirations of an organisation.
Yeah, you also want to develop good relationships with the clients you're working with. The best thing for us is to become valued and important to our clients and their R&D work streams. And we can only do that by building trust, continually delivering at the kind of timescales they need, the kind of quality they need, and that's why people are always coming back to Crux for repeat work. So we're there doing important work for them that they can't do, but from our perspective, we're just helping them develop their solution. They, at the end of the day, they have some sort of commercial need, and we're trying to make that a reality for them.
Joel, you've mentioned about pace. Now, I guess playing devil's advocate, one of the concerns a client may have about pace is that may lead to mistakes. And I've heard you and your colleagues talk about calculated innovation, but also fail-safe innovation. So can you tell us a bit about what that is and what benefits it brings?
Yeah, so one thing you've got to remember with innovation is inaction can be fatal, we see a lot of companies waiting maybe a little bit too long before they work on their next solution.
Right.
The market's always changing, the regulatory environment's always changing, new technologies, new patient needs. So if you just let that pass you by, then suddenly you're 5 years down the line without a solution to the next problem, and you're scrambling. You don't have enough time to develop it.
Right.
So inaction, you have to weigh the cost of inaction against the cost of action. And so it's important to always be working on the future, protecting against the future. So innovation always entails risk. There's no innovation without risk. But when you look at the risks associated with inaction, then that can motivate you to develop the new solutions.
And what can you do to minimise the risk? I take your point, about the fact that there's no risk, or even more risk if you don't do anything. But how can you temper the risk when you're innovating?
A couple of things. So one would be to diversify concepts. No one's got a crystal ball. No one can see the future. You don't know what the next technology is going to be. And so you should be working on several different things. And as they evolve, trying to evaluate how promising they are. And the thing that goes along with that is a fail fast mentality. So you can work on lots of things with relatively small investment, that's fine. And you're trying to work out if it's viable, and just quickly try and get to a point where you can make that decision. And if it's not viable, you just drop it and you move on. Innovation means you try a lot of things, and what works you stick with, and what doesn't work you just have to let go of.
So I guess you have the understanding of, well, first of all, you try things out so you can see when things aren't going to work early, and you can stop it there and then, and focus on those things that are going to have the biggest impact and be successful.
Yeah, and thinking about how we do that at Crux, we have quite an iterative mindset. So if that's in a drug delivery device design kind of project, then we're trying lots of solutions. We're creating a lot of concepts, and we're doing rapid prototyping and feasibility analysis on them, and refining that in a design, build, test cycle. What we do in the applied sciences team more often than not is we'll build a computational model, some sort of physics-based simulation of the device or the drug formulation, or whatever we're interested in. And then in that virtual environment, we do hundreds of tests across different conditions. Think of designing a new inhaler, and the airflow path of that inhaler is going to be really important for how the drug is delivered. So we might create 100 different simulations of different inhaler geometries. You do that within a week or two, and suddenly you know which of them are going to work and which aren't going to work, and that's pretty fast. Most projects can't even get off the ground at a large pharmaceutical company in 2 weeks, but in 2 weeks we're saying, here's your most promising concept.
Well, building on that, Joel, we've spoken about the work you did that led to the Innovation Award, but can you also share with us another example of how what you do around innovation has helped a client?
So, that was a pretty big innovation that we did in high-dose drug delivery. There's a more general framework to the innovation we do, and not all innovations we help clients with are big. So one thing I think of is a lot of the innovative work happens when we get different teams talking. It's cross-disciplinary, so we could be working on a device engineering project and say, hey, actually we need a medical scientist in here, we need a pharmacokinetics expert, let's get someone else into the conversation. And then the project, we start to make the links between different teams, because it all works together at the end of the day to provide some sort of optimal benefit to a patient. But in terms of small things that can change to improve innovation within a company, I'd be thinking about modeling and simulation, and taking almost any part of a physical test campaign could be replaced with modeling and simulation. So instead of doing the physical test and all the work of creating the prototype, designing, building, testing, you create a computer model and you test hundreds of variants under different geometries, different conditions, and then you've taken a little bit of your process of device design and you've replaced it with modeling and simulation. And that's innovative, it's faster, you can explore more ideas.
And I guess you haven't, as you say, got to physically produce something. You can test it on your computers, I suppose, test it using software, as opposed to actually physically doing something.
Yes.
Let's talk about you now, if you a little bit more, please. What do you find exciting about the approach to innovation and the work that you do with clients?
Well, I knew pretty early on in my career that I just wanted to work on difficult things, novel things. I like being the first to do something, and that's really driven me, pushed me into the role I now hold at Crux, which is a fantastic, privileged role with a lot of autonomy and a lot of high impact potential. One thing I think is it's great. Everyone loves new ideas, and it's fun to work on new things, but innovation without impact is a waste of time and money for everyone. So we need to grow that trust with our clients, and so I like developing those personal relationships and having the expertise of Crux and the Crux team valued by these senior leaders in industry. And so by being plugged in to the leaders of our industry, they know what's most important for their companies. We can listen to them and understand that, and we can deliver on really high impact projects that make a big difference to the way patients receive their medications, the way medical devices are used out in the field by doctors, surgeons, in all kinds of contexts. So it's exciting, it's fun, it's new, but it's also got that real world impact, and it's both sides that I like.
So looking ahead now, Joel, what will help shape the future of innovation in design, and what is Crux doing to keep ahead of that?
I'll go back to what I said around cross-disciplinary innovation. Different teams need to talk to each other. The most difficult problems can't be solved by just one team alone. We do a lot of work in high-dose drug delivery and injectables, so that's what we won the Innovation Award for. We're officially industry leaders in this, and if anyone's listening and you're working on high-dose injectables, you need to talk to Crux. We are the experts. We've done so much work in this space, large volumes, high concentration drug delivery, suspension formulations, from a devices point of view, from a formulations point of view, from a human factors point of view, from a pharmacokinetics point of view, everything that needs to come together to make a difficult to inject new drug product successful on the market, we do, and we're actively helping all kinds of pharmaceutical clients with this now. And so when there's a difficult problem which needs lots of teams to talk to each other, you need expertise and support that can talk to all these teams that understands their different needs and their different problems. So historical ways of working is a pharmaceutical company, the drug product team, they create a new molecule. It's going to be the greatest new cure for something. That's where all the money comes from. And then they say to the devices team, okay, you just got to find a way to get this into the body, find a way to inject it. And in the past, that worked fine. But now, with more and more unusual drug formulations that block needles, that are too difficult to push through a needle for patients, that require mixing and reconstitution steps, you need to be starting those conversations early and not creating a drug product which is impossible for the device to inject. And on the device team, you still need to maintain some humility and know that ultimately the pharmaceutical company is not selling medical devices, it's selling drugs, it's selling therapies for patients. So we still need to be flexible on the devices side, but by understanding where the biggest wins are and how to make drugs easier for patients to inject in their daily routines, in their weekly routines, that's the way to get a good product on the market.
So it sounds like a key part of your role is going to be making sure that the technology around delivery can keep up with the drugs development. Because they may produce drugs which, well, from what you said, can't be delivered by existing methods.
Yeah, and that's why it's exciting. So we're no longer just pushing some liquid through a syringe. We're having to do something more difficult, more complex, and we're having to make it easier for the patients. So it needs to be it's a more difficult challenge, but when it comes to the patient, it needs to be easier. It needs to be straightforward, foolproof.
Joel, we've covered a lot. Thank you very much for your time. Going back over what we've discussed, what one thing would you particularly like someone who's listened to our conversation to take away?
I think if you're listening and you want to fast track your engineering and scientific solutions to difficult problems, reach out. It's free to do. Talk to us, have an intro call. We'll talk to you about our capabilities. We'll listen to you, and we'll see if we can come to a solution together.
Joel, thank you very much for talking us through your role as Chief Scientist here at Crux and the Crux approach to innovation. And of course, congratulations again on Crux's winning of the PDA Innovation Award.
Thanks, Tom.
And thank you to you for joining us for this edition of the Crux Spotlight podcast. I look forward to seeing you again for the next one.